What's up, Wizards? It's Dev, Mtg. We like it a Magic, and it is a good week to be a Magic player. We've already seen our first look at Wilds of Eldraine, and official previews start in just 2 weeks. That means that time is actually running pretty short now before this new set actually starts dropping in the streets. So that means that you and I, got to have a little date. We got to hang out and talk about what exactly we even expect out of this new set. Now, we could do that like adults. We could have a little sit down and discuss all the problems with the meta and the new cards that need to be in this set to address those problems. We could have a whole little podcast, but honestly, it kind of sounds boring. So instead, I'm going to use this opportunity, as I usually do, to flex my terrible design muscles and talk about some cards that I want to exist that don't. Now, you there in the back, yes, I see you there. No, this is not a dumb video, or at least I don't think it is. But if I had to explain all the reasons I don't think it's a dumb video to you, I would just be taking up another 5 minutes of your time. And who has all that time nowadays? I know you're busy, and I respect you. So all I'll say is that no, most of these cards probably have no chance whatsoever of actually being made, and that's kind of lame. It would be amazing if it would actually happen for once. No, what's actually much more likely to happen is that these cards are all like horribly designed, and one of them's like a self-contained infinite combo. I think that's actually happened in one of these videos before, but we all get to have a little bit of fun. You call me out for my garbage in the comments section, and it scratches the itch to see some new cards. So let's go ahead and jump to the fun part. Top 10 cards I want to see in Wilds of Eldraine. I almost said Throne of Eldraine. I've tried this take like 50 times and I finally nailed it, and I almost screwed it up. And here I am screwing it up again. Let's roll the intro. And I'm your favorite Magic channel's favorite Magic channel. Best believe that the professor go bananas for my deck tech. And we are back just in time to look at number 10. Let's go ahead and get on with it already. Now, over the course of this video, I might a couple of times take advantage of the fact that we've already seen some images from this set, and there's some artwork that I really wanted to make cards for, so I've done that. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what the first thing I had to make a card for was? I bet you've already got it in your head. Now, number 10 is the Goostra. Not the Goodra. Enough Pokemon on this channel already lately. I'm ready to get back to Magic, even me. But yeah, instead we're going to be looking at the Goostra for number 10 here. Now, in my mind, the Goostra costs X and a green for a Goose Hydra with flying. It enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. You remove a +1/+1 counter from it to create a food token. You can sack a food to add a mana of any color. And if damage would be dealt to Goostra, prevent that damage, remove a +1/+1 counter from it. So it's kind of a gilded goose, right? But on the other hand, kind of a Hydra too. Did I do it right? Honestly, this design ended up being pretty simple by the end of things here, but I think it's actually a pretty good design without being too broken, and I'd like to see something like this at some point. This would actually be a pretty versatile little piece, right? I mean, you can play it on like turn 3 and effectively bank like 2 ramp for the next turn and go ahead and start making like 6 mana on turn 4 if you wanted to. It would basically be a 0/0 at that point, but still ramping 2 on turn 3 is pretty sweet to be able to do. It also fixes your mana. You need to remember that whenever you have a big fat goose on the table, you need some fixins. So that's nice. Also, you could play this super late game and either bank a ton of mana for the next turn or just have a bunch of life. You know, this could catch you back up on life pretty quick if you can make it like a 4/4. So I like that in this design, at least, you could convert these tokens into either mana or life, depending on kind of like what stage of the game you're in. And don't forget that, again, late in the game, this not only could potentially catch you up on life, but it could just be like a 5/5 flyer if you pump a bunch of mana into it. I was going to end it on that, but I just want to point one more thing out. It would be cool to just stack this thing with +1/+1 counters beyond the mana that you spent on it, right? Like any effects that'll put +1/+1 counters on it are effectively just giving you like free mana or life at that point, almost free life. So that would also be a cool thing about the card. On to the next one. Now, for number 9, this is the first time in this video, but probably not the last, that I'm going to ask you to actually picture Eldraine post-Phyrexian sweeping through. They've destroyed all of the courts. Everything is in complete disarray. Apparently, most of the leaders are dead and all that, or in hiding, or whatever. So right now, a lot of Eldraine is in a massive disarray after the Phyrexians have swept through, and especially after some Eldrainians got the wise idea to just put the Phyrexians to sleep with a spell, and it turned out that it put a whole bunch of other people to sleep too. It's actually kind of a silly premise, but I dig it, to be honest with you. So I think that in a climate like that, there's going to be alliances made that maybe weren't there before. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the alliance of Garenbrig and Embereth. This is a Gruul enchantment. Apparently Morrow says there's going to be a bunch of enchantments and stuff in this set. So here's one right here. Alliance of Garenbrig and Embereth would cost 1, a red, and a green to cast. And when it enters the battlefield, you'd discard up to 2 cards. You'd create a treasure token for each card discarded this way. Whenever you sacrifice a treasure token, deal 1 damage to each other player. I'll admit it, Commander players, you guys seem to be having so much fun with your Mirkwood bats, just hanging out, doing treasure stuff, pinging everybody, and I want to be able to do that in Standard. This actually costs less than Mirkwood bats, but is arguably harder to cast. It's also harder to remove, so there's that, but it also makes you come down on up to 2 cards when you cast it. So there's that, I guess. Doesn't this also stack, as a matter of fact? You can play multiples of this, and it'll deal more damage when you sacrifice treasures. That would actually be disgusting, but I guess you'd skip your turn 3 to play it, and you'd probably skip your next turn to play a second copy. It's actually, a point I'm getting at here, probably not as good as it looks. It doesn't actually advance your board state like at all if you play this on turn 3, but it's reminiscent of a card that we've just banned in the format, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, right? You cast this just like Fable on turn 3. You end up with 2 ramp instead of Fable giving you maybe 1 ramp the next turn. And you get to pitch a couple of cards the same way Fable lets you do. But this doesn't give you a body on the table. It doesn't give you another body on the table later that starts copying bodies. So I'm not going to say it's anywhere near as good as Fable, but I do want to replace that card somehow. And I think it would be pretty neat to have like just 1 card in the format that lets us do some like ridiculous treasure shenanigans and actually use treasure as a win condition. Again, Commander players get to do that all the time. Standard players don't really, so I would love a piece like this. But let's move on to number 8, which is actually just an excuse for me to make a saga that I think would be decent in this meta. That's really all this one is, and I also get a chance to talk about one of my favorite characters. So let's take a look at the Story of Yorvo. The Story of Yorvo is just 2 green mana for an enchantment. It's a saga, and if you'll notice, it can't be countered. Now, on Chapter 1, you'd create a 2/2 legendary green giant creature token named Yorvo. I love that it says green giant. And on Chapter 2, you'd put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. On Chapter 3, you put another +1/+1 counter and a trample counter on a creature you control. If you do, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Hey, you want a 2-mana 5/5 trample that can't be countered? Here, I guess this is probably really good, actually, but green needs a very strong 2-drop. And I'd like it if it was a green 2-drop. That's why this is double green, and it's not going to see, or wouldn't see. Again, these cards don't exist and probably won't, but it wouldn't see a whole lot of play outside of mono green decks. But I do think those stompy decks need a really strong 2-drop option. And it's a pretty fair card, right? It takes a couple of turns to actually get up to the 5/5. Your opponent has plenty of time to remove it in the meantime. Honestly, I do think I probably went a little bit overboard with the disenchant mode or the naturalize mode at the end of the 3rd chapter, but it's Yorvo. I wanted him to smash something at the end of his story. That is probably what he would want his story to end with. So this one's for you, Yorvo. Ultimately, this is probably a ridiculous card, but I wanted something, A, that's good against mono blue. Note how this can't be countered, and eventually can take down Tolarian Terrors because it gets to 5 power, and even Haughty Djinns because it gets to 5 power. But yeah, I really wanted a green card that was great against mono blue, but in the meantime, this will also eventually be able to attack into and absorb hits from a Sheoldred, right? So I think this does an awful lot in the current format because it's kind of just a ridiculously strong-looking card. It would probably be good in just about any format. But that said, even with the caveat that I understand this card is strong, I don't think that it's impossible for a card like it to exist either. Discuss. Now, for my next entry, we're going to talk a little bit about Vorthos stuff again for just a second. Did you know Ayara's probably dead? I say probably because she fell off of a cliff, and in my mind, in a fantasy story, if you fall off of a cliff, you're probably not dead, unless your name is Jaya. Sorry, Jaya. But one way or the other, apparently, if you didn't know this, I guess spoilers for a Magic story. Why do do you actually care? But one way or the other. Apparently, I think we all know at this point that Ayara was completed by the Phyrexians when they arrived on Eldraine and blah, blah, blah. But did you know how she died? Did you know that Rankle used a love potion to lure her off of a cliff to her death? Is that not the silliest thing you've ever heard in your life? I didn't know that until like 2 days ago, but one way or the other. One way or the other. Apparently, in the wilds of Eldraine, there is a council of elves, and they're kind of like evil or whatever, And obviously, Ayara is an elf. She's an elf. I don't know if you knew that. Actually, it's not that obvious, but she is, in fact, an elf. She has gone and spoken with the council before. They want her, but, she's like, no, I got this whole thing going on in Lockthwaite. Well, now, I think it would be entirely possible if maybe the elves found her body somewhere and then decided to do some kind of magic. This is Magic the Gathering, after all, and resurrect her somehow, and now she hangs out with them and works with them and schemes with them and blah, blah, blah. So what would a resurrected Ayara look like? So here's Ayara Resurrected Widow right here. This is 2 black mana for a 2/3 legendary elf druid. You can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice another creature. Have each opponent sacrifice a creature. But whenever an opponent sacrifices a creature token, you untap Ayara. Bulk rare. It's a cute card, but I'm actually not sure how good this card is. But I do like the flavor just a little bit here. Ayara really loves sacrificing dudes, right? But if your opponent thinks that they can just get around this by sacrificing a token, no, you got to put some respect on her tributes. You need to sacrifice something real, or else we're just going to go around again. Eventually, I guess, theoretically, you could run out of mana, but not before your opponent has sacrificed like 5 tokens, and that would kind of suck for them too. So, I don't know. I like the design of this, but to be honest with you, I'm hoping that Wizards comes with something even zanier if they do decide to resurrect Ayara. And for the record, I think they should. I think it's kind of cool and I want it to exist, but in Standard, I'm not sure how good it would actually be. I mean, it can be cut down. I think that's worth at least pointing out. It dies to cut down. So, but ultimately, I think it would be a neat card to have in Standard without being like incredible or anything. And cards like that need to exist too. Now for number 6, let's go ahead and acknowledge that Wizards has made a big old to-do about the fact that Omen Paths are a thing and non-planeswalkers and even people who didn't used to be planeswalkers, because like all the planeswalkers have lost their spark, or a lot of them. But a bunch of just regular old Joe Schmoes and blows can run around between planes at this point, given that they have like the right equipment and they're ready for the journey and all that stuff. So we're going to probably start seeing a bunch of legendary creatures that weren't ever planeswalkers travel back and forth between planes. And you know who I want to see? This is a weird pick because I could have picked literally anybody, but I would love if Rocco was hanging out on Eldraine serving people food. Actually, before we look at the card, let's just stop the entire video for just a second so I can pitch this to you. That's the whole point of this video. That was my master plan all along, was to pitch this idea to Wizards of the Coast. Wizards, I think that every time we go to a new set that's on a different plane than we've been hanging out on, you should put Rocco in that set. Rocco should be a card in every set on every plane from now on. Just hanging out in the kitchen, cooking stuff for people. I would think that was hilarious if you actually did that. I know that you won't, but that's my idea, and I hope that you do it. But anyway, let's take a look at Rocco, Wandering Chef here for number 6. This is 3 mana. It's always Naya colors, right? It's just a red, a green, and a white for a 3/3 legendary elf chef. And when it enters the battlefield, you create a food token for each creature in play. Whenever a player sacrifices a food token, that player draws a card. So Rocco comes in. Yeah, it's Gordon Ramsay. Rocco comes in and he makes a meal for every single creature on the table. Make sure that everyone's nice and fed. That's cool. And Rocco also keeps his habit of having like a symmetrical effect that theoretically helps both you and your opponent. We've seen it on at least one of Rocco's cards before. And honestly, I'd like to kind of keep that trend going. So if your opponent sacrifices food and gains life, they too draw cards. But obviously, you're a food deck. You're going to be sacrificing more food, and you have ways to sacrifice it. That's not necessarily paying 2 mana and popping it for 3 life. Remember, any way that you sacrifice a food, this will draw you a card. So if you just sacrifice an artifact like a Shrapnel Blast, is that the best I can do? Off the top of my head, sure. Shrapnel Blast is a good card, but yeah, if you sacrifice a food to Shrapnel Blast, that's 5 damage, draw a card. Seems good. So I think this would be a cool little card. Again, I like the flavor here. I just want him to feed everybody on the table at the same time. I think that's cute. I like Rocco, one of my favorite characters, and I want to see more of him no matter how you design him. Now for number 5, let me just start by saying that I and you, we all know how fantasy stories work. Everyone on Eldraine is super sleepy right now. Oh no, we got to figure out how to wake them up, and that's probably going to have to involve some sort of fancy pants artifact or something like that, because that's kind of how it always works. There's going to be a MacGuffin involved of some kind. So for number 5, let's take a look at the MacGuffin. Now the MacGuffin is a legendary artifact that costs 6 mana, and it has Adamant, an underused and pretty cool mechanic from the last time we came to Eldraine. When the MacGuffin enters the battlefield, if at least 3 mana of the same color was spent to cast it, put an indestructible counter on target permanent you control. At the beginning of your end step, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then choose target creature. Until your next turn, that creature can't attack. You know what occurs to me that creature can't attack probably could have been put a stun counter on that creature. I wonder if we're going to get stun counters in this set because, like, you know, everyone's asleep or whatever, and I think stun counters would be a pretty cool way to illustrate that. But kind of getting way ahead of myself, let's actually talk about how I made the card in the first place. Yeah, this is just a 6-mana artifact that gains you life and draws you a card every turn and probably gets an indestructible counter. If you can actually get this out, pretty sure it's good. But is it too good? Nah, I don't think so. For 6 mana, it would probably end up being a somewhat playable commander card, but I'm not actually sure that a card like this would end up seeing too much play in standard. But like, maybe you can ramp into it in some way. Maybe you put the indestructible counter on not it, but something else, which I gave you the ability to do. But I guess the last thing I want to say about this card is that I'll address all the creative writing weirdos and film bros in the room and stuff like that. Yes, the ring is a MacGuffin. I know some of you, again, in the back are like, the ring's not a MacGuffin. It's actually the best example of a MacGuffin of all time. It is a MacGuffin. But we got one more card before we get into the top 3 and a probably pretty contentious coffee break. But we'll get there in a second. For number 4, we're going to look at a Planeswalker that isn't legendary, or wouldn't be at least. Now, I already designed this card before I heard Mark Rosewater say there's only going to be like one Planeswalker in every set moving forward, or at least the next few sets. And we already know who the Planeswalker in this set's going to be, so there's absolutely no way this card can exist in this set, and that kind of sucks, but I already made it, and I really like it. So let's take a look at Sparkstealer. And we get to mess around a little bit with the adventure mechanic here on Sparkstealer. I wanted to make at least one adventure card, and I thought it would be cool to make a Planeswalker that is also an adventure. So let's take a look at this real quick. Spark Channel is the adventure mode on this card. It's just 1 and a red for a sorcery. Target Planeswalker an opponent controls loses all abilities and becomes a creature with base power and toughness equal to its loyalty. Then it goes into exile, and you can cast Sparkstealer, just 2 and a red for a 1 loyalty Planeswalker that also happens to be a human wizard. And yeah, it's Gordon Ramsay again. I couldn't think of better art. Now, +1, target creature can't block this turn. For 0, you can deal the damage to any target. And for -1, you exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you can play that card. Now, fun fact about the design on this card. Originally, it didn't have a +1 on the Planeswalker mode, but I ended up thinking it would be really funny if it could kind of bully the Planeswalker it just made into a creature and keep it from blocking. Ultimately, though, the reason I designed this card is because I wanted red to have some form of Planeswalker removal, but red does a lot of stuff in air quotes, doesn't it? This also has the red draw a card on it. It's the ultimate. It's just a lot of air quotes needed on red cards in general, but this one gets a ton of them. I would love to see something along these lines, an adventure Planeswalker where the Planeswalker half is just kind of like so middling that it doesn't even have to be legendary, although I may have missed that mark. I think this might be slightly better than middling, but one way or the other, I think it's an interesting design that I'd like to see something akin to in the future. But I got to give WotC some credit here. Making cards can be hard work. I could really use with a nice, comfy, easy chair, somewhere to put my dogs up, and a nice little coffee break. This week on the coffee break, we'll be talking about the top 3 cards that I want reprinted in Wilds of Eldraine. These are cards that actually have existed and could exist again. Number 3 is All That Glitters. As previously stated, Mario says there's going to be an enchantment sub-theme in this set, and I would love to have one of my favorite cards of the last few years back again to play with. Number 2 is Yawgmoth's Will, which is currently on the reserve list. I know, nerds. The first thing I will say in retort to this point is who cares? Wizards should just print things that are on the reserve list and not give a crap. Thank you for your dislike. However, my second and much more rational retort is that if we cannot have Yawgmoth's Will, I at least want a card that is very much like it. We were recently shown the one Planeswalker from this set, a 5-mana version of Ashiok that allows you to exile cards from the top of your library rather than pay life. This looks very good with Lord of the Forsaken, and in combination, effectively allows you to create mana equal to the number of cards in your deck. You just need some way to play those cards out of your graveyard. But the number 1 card that I want reprinted the most in Wilds of Eldraine is Opalescence/Replenish. Again, I am fully aware that these are both on the reserve list currently. I am also emotionally incapable of caring less. According to Mark Rosewater, Wilds of Eldraine is a set partially based around enchantments. With that in mind, I want my favorite deck from 1998 back, Mark. Give it to me. That's all for the coffee break this week. Remember to take everything I said here entirely seriously. Now back to Dev with the top 3. Back feeling refreshed from that coffee break. Good stuff. Number 3, though, is a card that better be in the set. That's all I'm going to say, right? We already know from Marky Mark that we're getting like Tough Cookie in the set. Look, if this card can exist in standard and not an unset, there is no reason why any of the cards I've already shown you today can't exist. That's all I'm going to say. But he's also said that we're guaranteed to get a bunch of like animated food and it wants to eat you. How novel. No one's ever done that idea before, I don't think. But we've also got marketing for one character that I know is going to be in here somewhere. And if she's not, I think I might riot, just me, by myself. Let's take a look at Ginger, Vengeful Bride. I've got Ginger down for just a single mana for a 3/3 legendary artifact creature who is a food golem with Defender. Whenever a source an opponent controls other than damage causes you to lose life, prevent that loss of life and lose 1 life instead. Whenever a player sacrifices a food, Ginger may attack that turn as though it didn't have Defender. You can pay 2 and tap it and sack it to gain 3 life because it's a food. Okay, so first of all, you get the flavor. It's not too like ham-fisted and stupid, I hope. Basically, whenever someone sacrifices a food, she gets to attack because she's like mad or something. Yeah, I'm very good at this. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But the actual reason that I made this card in the first place was to help nerf black X decks in standard. Can you see that part? First of all, it's a 3/3. That means it doesn't die to cut down, which is kind of important. It's also an artifact creature, so it doesn't die to go for the throat. That's a nice little stat line to have right there. But also, it kind of helps you play through that Sheldred. It can't really attack into it, but I guess it can block against it once if you wanted to. But mostly it's making it to where every time you draw that card, you lose 1 life instead of the 2. I just think that makes things a little bit easier without making Sheldred like actually unplayable or anything, right? You're still losing some life. And for that matter, they're still gaining some life when they draw cards and stuff. So I don't think this would completely nerf Sheldred or anything, but I think it'd be a nice little sideboard piece that literally any deck could play. Now, for number 2, fair warning, we're going to look at Oko, but he's not some like ludicrously powerful planeswalker that we have to ban or anything. As a matter of fact, I don't know that my version of Oko is actually that amazing. I just want to see Royal Assassin reprinted into standard. So let's take a look at Oko. That's his name, just Oko here. I like that naming convention. He's Soul Tie colors this time around, black, green, and blue for a 2/4 legendary Fey demigod. I don't know if that's his actual creature type, so that's what I rolled with here. You may have Oko enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's legendary, and its name is Oko. You can tap it to destroy target tapped creature. I'm well aware that it looks really weird the way that it's written, but that is fully intentional on my part. I wanted, again, some tension, some push-pull here. I really like that because I'm fairly certain the way it's worded right now, if you elect to have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a different creature, it's not going to have its Royal Assassin ability. I'm fairly certain that's how the game works. I've been playing for 30 years. I really ought to know how the rules work, but it doesn't mean that I do. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that I am. But one way or the other, if you elect to have him interplay as something else, he won't have this Royal Assassin ability. But if you don't elect to have him copy something else, then you got a 2/4 Royal Assassin. And I kind of like the versatility and, again, the tension on that decision. So I think it's a cool design, and I hope that it works the way I've written it here. But here we are at number 1. But all the way at the end of the video, we made it. I'm proud of us. But number 1, let's talk a little bit about 2 people who have already been talked about an awful lot in terms of this set story, because Rowan and Will are apparently back on Eldraine. Their parents are gone at this point, and they got to figure out which one of them is going to take the crown. I'm pretty sure at the end of it, they're just both going to hold the throne jointly. I'm fairly certain that's what we're going to do, but all the stuff leading up to that is probably going to be like watching season 4 of Succession, so hopefully the story is somewhat enjoyable. But either way, you got to have cards for these guys. They're going to be in the set. So what do Rowan and Will look like? Now, let me say first that this is going to look like 2 separate cards, but I think they should just do another double-faced Will and Rowan, so you could play either one of these if you wanted to. Let's take a look at Rowan Kenrith first. This is 2 in red for a 3/3 legendary human wizard with haste. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any target. At the end of combat on your turn, if Rowan attacked this turn, return it to owner's hand. Or, on the other side, you could play Will Kenrith. He's 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 legendary human wizard with flash. And when he enters the battlefield, you may return target spell or permanent to its owner's hand. Let me address this. Yes, Will apparently is just a strictly better Venser Shaper Savant. I made this card 2 days ago and didn't realize until I was right here recording the video that the card is just a better Venser, so there's that. But have we not reached the point where we can just have a better Venser? Probably not, to be honest. This is a pretty ridiculous card, and it's probably the best card of the day, all things considered. If these were real spoilers that actually existed, this would probably be my number one card of the day in this exact batch of cards. But again, there's tension here. If I do want to play the Rowan half of it, that exposes it to removal and stuff, and then I don't get the will half of it later, right? But there's other good things about it. If I rip it off the top of my library in the late game, again, there's tension. If I'm against control, do I want to go ahead and try to resolve this 3/3 haste and attack with it for extra damage? Is that a thing I want, or do I want to hold on to it and wait till they try to cast a big spell and use this as part of a counter war or something like that? Or do I wait till the end of their turn just to get a body on the table and play the will? There's a lot of different ways you could play this card, and that's the kind of Magic card that I really like. But again, ultimately, there's always like 1, 2, or 10 of these cards in like all of these I made a card videos that are just a little bit too much, and I fear that this might be the most too much card in the video. But again, I'm sure that like number 7 was a self-contained infinite combo I didn't catch or something, and that Oko doesn't actually even work the way I've got him written. I'm sure there's all kinds of fun you can have down there in the comments section. Go down there and get me. I called myself good at this a minute ago. Can you believe that? I'm terrible at this. But for now, alas, that's all that we've got to look at. Just a couple of more weeks. Previews officially start on August the 15th. Make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so you can check those out when they happen, because when they do happen, I'll have a video out lickety split. Is that a thing people say anymore? I'll have a video out as fast as possible. You know, I gotta say, in between takes there, I was just thinking about what the origins of the phrase lickety split could possibly be. And when you really devote some brain space to it, it's probably horribly inappropriate where that phrase comes from. But anyway, let's not think about that. You want some more dev content? I got some for you. Go and check out the Pokemon channel we just started up that has exactly one video on it. We just released the Pokemon Obsidian Flame set review last night, right? It's the top 10 cards in the set, the top 10 sleepers, and the top 5 most overrated cards in the whole set. A lot of information there, so if you're interested in more me talking about playing cards and stuff, then I'll leave a link in the description. Go check that video out. We're trying to get to 1,000 subs on that channel as quickly as possible. So even if you don't watch the video, if you just like give me a sub, that would actually help you do it out a lot. Appreciate that. And if you want to support me just a little bit, you can do that over on patreon.com/sbmtg. A link in the description. Just $1 a month is all that I ask, and it helps me make better content while ensuring that I pay my rent and eat. I know it looks like I eat a lot, but I actually kind of don't. So if you want to help, just kind of make sure that I have shelter, maybe check out the Patreon. It would mean a lot to me. But hey, I noticed that you're still here, and there can only really be one reason for that. You want to see what we pull off the couch. Let's see it. Couch card of the day. No self-promotion needed this time. I've already done it all. What is this card going to be? It's actually a card playable in Standard, which will continue to be playable in Standard for another year. That seems weird, but yeah. It's a Wrenn and 7. Doesn't this seem ancient now? But yeah, it's a Wrenn and 7 from Midnight Hunt. This used to be a good card. You remember when we used to play the crap out of this card? Then one day it just wasn't a good card anymore because the removal was too good. So you just go for the token they produce, and then you just attack into the Wrenn and 7, and it's over. So it's not actually very good. It used to be an awesome Planeswalker. What happened? What happened to that? I want to return to the days where Wrenn and 7 is playable in Standard, because it really ought to be. But anyway, decent pull off the couch this time around, I think. And with that, everybody, sad to say, we are officially done with content for the day. Make sure you check out the Pokemon channel. It would mean a lot to me if you did that, because I worked really hard. But anyway, I worked hard on this one too. So if you want to like this video, that would equally mean things to me. But one way or the other, I guess I'm done talking finally. I know it seems like I'm never done talking, but I think we reached the end. So I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.